The London Science Museum in 1991 hosts a crowd of engineers around a colossal 11-foot machine, Difference Engine Number 2. Constructed from 150-year-old designs, the 5-ton assembly of bronze and steel stands as a monument to a vision long dismissed as fanciful. Anticipation is thick in the air. An engineer grips the machine's handle, initiating the grand sequence. 8,000 precision-machined parts spring into synchronous motion. Gears mesh, and number columns spin and click with a flawless, mechanical whirring sound. The engine computes a complex, seventh-order polynomial to 31 digits of accuracy, displaying the result perfectly. The moment is a profound, posthumous triumph, proving Babbage's designs were rigorous and practical, challenging the legacy of failure. This spectacular vindication reframes Babbage's life, transforming the question from "could his machines have worked?" to "why did a genius, armed with perfect designs, fail to build them in his own age?" The answers lie in complex human failures. Charles Babbage is born on December 26, 1791, into the wealth of the British financial elite. His father, a successful London banker, secures him the status of an independently wealthy gentleman scientist, freeing him from the necessity of profession. Childhood is marked by recurring, life-threatening fevers. A sickly Babbage is sent to a country school in Alphington, where tutors are instructed to prioritize his health over intensive knowledge, leading to enforced solitude. The young Babbage finds refuge in self-directed learning, fostered by the library at Homewood Academy. This gentle curriculum unexpectedly cultivates a deep, all-consuming passion for mathematics and intellectual discovery. As a schoolboy, Babbage discovers algebra and, with a like-minded companion, begins a habit of waking at 3 in the morning. They secretly study complex mathematics by the faint light of a shared fire before the official school day begins. By his teenage years, Babbage's mathematical self-instruction has far outpaced his tutors. He devours the advanced works of continental masters like Lagrange and Masters, differential and integral calculus entirely on his own. In October 1810, Babbage arrives at Trinity College, Cambridge, armed with knowledge surpassing his instructors. He is frustrated and intellectually isolated, finding the premier university's curriculum profoundly behind the times. Babbage observes that British mathematics remains stubbornly dedicated to Newton's outdated dot notation for calculus, while the continent embraces the superior dy/dx notation of Leibniz, stagnating scientific progress. In a decisive act of intellectual rebellion, Babbage co-founds the Analytical Society in 1812 with friends John Herschel and George Peacock. They pledge to overthrow the Newtonian orthodoxy that grips Cambridge. The founders jokingly declare their mission to promote the principles of deism in opposition to the dotage of the university. This society is Babbage's first organized campaign against scientific inefficiency and dogma. The Analytical Society translates crucial French texts on analytical mathematics. Their efforts successfully popularized the Leibnizian notation, which eventually became the international standard used today. Babbage's early reform movement establishes a foundational pattern, identifying systemic British flaws, seeking advanced foreign solutions, and driving reform through confrontational, organized action. Beyond calculus reform, Babbage reveals an eclectic mind by joining unconventional university clubs, including the Extractors Club, whose members vow to rescue each other from any unjust commitment to a madhouse. He is also a member of the Ghost Club, dedicated to the scientific, rational investigation of supernatural phenomena. This early fascination with the boundaries of order and the unexplained informs his later work in logic and systemization. In 1814, Babbage marries Georgiana Whitmore, defying his stern father's wishes. Although he leaves Cambridge without traditional honors, the marriage is profoundly happy and supportive of his burgeoning scientific career. Living comfortably on inherited wealth, Babbage establishes himself in the vibrant London scientific scene. He delivers prestigious lectures on astronomy at the Royal Institution, securing his reputation as a rising star. Babbage's scientific stature is confirmed in 1816 at the young age of 24 when he is elected a Fellow of the Royal Society. He joins the establishment he will soon work tirelessly to reform and reorganize. In the early 19th century, vast books of mathematical tables are the bedrock of Britain's industrial, maritime, and scientific endeavors, driving everything from navigation to engineering and finance. These critical tables are compiled by teams of error-prone human computers performing repetitive, exhausting calculations. Mistakes compound during transcription, typesetting, and printing, rendering the data unreliable. Babbage becomes obsessed with the fallibility of these human-calculated tables. He recognizes that a single error in a nautical almanac is not a minor inconvenience, but a potential disaster, a sunken rock at sea. The astronomer John Herschel notes that errors in calculations have cost the government millions and contributed to maritime tragedies, fueling Babbage's desire to find an infallible mechanical solution. Around 1821, while checking tables with Herschel and encountering endless mistakes, Babbage exclaims in frustration, "I wish to God these calculations had been executed by steam." The revolutionary idea is born. The difference engine is conceived as a machine that would mechanize the entire process of table making, from infallible calculation to automatic stereotyping and printing, eliminating all human error. Babbage's genius lies in applying the elegant mathematical principle of finite differences. This method allows the machine to calculate complex polynomial functions using only the simple, repetitive operation of addition. The design calls for columns of toothed gear wheels, each representing a decimal digit. Once initial values are set, the repeated turning of a crank performs the successive additions, automatically generating number sequences. In 1822, Babbage constructs a small demonstration model capable of computing to 8 decimal places. He presents it to the Astronomical Society, earning their first gold medal and generating immediate excitement. With the backing of the Royal Society, Babbage successfully lobbies the British government. In 1823, he receives an initial grant of £1,500, marking one of the world's first government subsidies for technological research. The full design for Difference Engine Number 1 is a mechanical behemoth, requiring 25,000 precision-engineered parts. The finished machine would stand 8 feet high and weigh an estimated 4 tons. Babbage establishes a specialized, fireproof workshop to house the meticulous construction. He recognizes the required level of accuracy necessitates inventing new, specialized machine tools and engineering techniques as he proceeds. Costs spiral out of control, consuming £17,000 of public funds and a similar amount of Babbage's personal wealth. The government, unused to open-ended, long-term research projects, grows increasingly skeptical and impatient. The project's eventual undoing is a bitter, protracted dispute with his master machinist, Joseph Clement. The conflict centers on payments and Babbage's demand that Clement relocate his specialized workshop. In 1832, the conflict escalates. Clement halts all work, dismisses his skilled crew, and, crucially, claims legal ownership of the unique tools created for the project. The Great Difference Engine is left incomplete and abandoned. The year 1827 becomes Babbage's annus horribilis, a period of devastating personal loss. He first loses his stern and difficult father, Benjamin, followed shortly by his second son, Charles. The greatest blow strikes when his beloved wife, Georgiana, dies in childbirth along with their newborn son. The rapid succession of tragedies leaves Babbage inconsolable and on the verge of a complete nervous breakdown. Around 1834, a further tragedy strikes when his cherished daughter, also named Georgiana, dies in her teens. Of the 8 children he fathered, only 3 survived to adulthood, compounding his profound, lifelong grief. Emotionally shattered, Babbage embarks on an extended trip across the continent, seeking to recover his health and spirits, finding only temporary relief from the chaos of his private life. The death of his father, while personally fraught, also secures his financial future. Babbage inherits a colossal estate valued at £100,000, ensuring he remains independent and able to pursue his projects without professional constraint. Babbage channels his overwhelming grief into relentless, obsessive work, dedicating himself entirely to his engines and reforms. He never remarries, choosing his intellectual pursuits as his sole refuge. Despite his distraction, Babbage is appointed to the most prestigious academic post in the world, the Lucasian Professorship of Mathematics at Cambridge, a chair once held by Isaac Newton. However, consumed by his grief and the vision of his engines, Babbage neglects his teaching duties entirely. In the 11 years he holds the post, 1828 to 1839, he famously never delivers a single lecture. In stark contrast to his private suffering, Babbage becomes the lion of the London social scene in the 1830s. His home at 1 Dorset Street hosts legendary Saturday soirees, intellectual hubs of the city. Celebrated figures like Charles Dickens, leading scientists, politicians, and artists flock to his evenings. Babbage, the captivating raconteur, uses these powerful connections to promote his ideas on science and reform. The centerpiece of his glittering soirees is often the small, working portion of the difference engine, a gleaming brass marvel that holds his high society guests spellbound, showcasing his mechanical genius. This public persona highlights Babbage's deep duality, the charming socialite commanding the elite's attention versus the grief-stricken perfectionist who struggles to manage the practical, interpersonal politics necessary for success. Even as difference engine number 1 founders, Babbage's mind makes an astonishing conceptual leap. In 1834, he begins sketching plans for a new machine that would fundamentally transcend all previous calculating devices. This new concept is the Analytical Engine, marking the historic transition from a special-purpose calculator to the world's first true general-purpose programmable computer. The architecture of the Analytical Engine anticipates the modern computer. It is structured around the mill, the central calculating unit that performs arithmetic, analogous to the modern CPU. The machine also features the store, a massive array of columns and wheels intended to hold numbers and intermediate results, serving as the machine's primary memory unit. Babbage designs a system for input and output, including a sophisticated printer. Crucially, he solves the problem of instruction input by borrowing an ingenious device from the textile industry. He adapts the punched cards invented for the Jacquard loom, used to weave complex patterns, to control his machine. These cards, perforated with holes, would dictate the engine's mathematical sequence. Punched cards enable the conceptual breakthrough of programmability. Babbage envisions 2 sets of cards: operation cards dictating the functions, and variable cards pointing to the numbers in the store. This fundamental separation of instruction, software, from physical structure, hardware, means the Analytical Engine is not fixed. Its function can be changed infinitely simply by feeding it a new deck of instruction cards. The design includes mechanisms for looping, allowing the machine to repeat a series of instructions automatically, a crucial function for iterative, complex scientific calculations. Furthermore, Babbage incorporates conditional branching. This provides the engine with a primitive form of decision-making, enabling it to jump to a different instruction based on the outcome of a previous calculation. These features, programmability, looping, and conditional branching, were so advanced that they were often missing from many of the first electronic computers built in the mid-20th century. In 1833, Babbage meets Augusta Ada Byron, the Countess of Lovelace, daughter of the famous poet. The teenage countess, a highly gifted mathematician, is instantly captivated by the engine's potential. A lifelong friendship and exhilarating intellectual correspondence begins. Babbage, recognizing her unique brilliance, affectionately nicknames her the Enchantress of Number. Their collaboration reaches its pinnacle in 1843 when Lovelace translates an account of the Analytical Engine, originally published by Italian engineer Luigi Menabrea, from French into English. At Babbage's suggestion, Lovelace adds an extensive set of explanatory notes to the translation, which eventually run to 3 times the length of the original article. Lovelace's notes become a foundational document of computer science, demonstrating a deep philosophical grasp of the machine's potential that transcends simple calculation. In her famous Note G, Lovelace constructs what is now recognized as the world's first complex computer program, a detailed, step-by-step algorithm to calculate a sequence of Bernoulli numbers. This algorithm is a tangible execution trace, showing precisely how the punched cards would interact with the mill and store to perform this complex mathematical task, defining the concept of software. Lovelace articulates the most profound conceptual leap. The analytical engine could process more than just numbers. It could manipulate any symbolic, abstract data, provided its fundamental relations were known. She famously writes that the engine weaves algebraical patterns just as the jacquard loom weaves flowers and leaves, envisioning a universal symbol-manipulating machine capable of creating music and art. The Babbage-Lovelace partnership thus creates the full idea of the computer. Babbage as the master hardware architect, and Lovelace as the first philosopher and conceptualizer of the software. Beyond his engines, Babbage is a restless Victorian polymath, publishing 6 books and nearly 90 papers on subjects from geology to economics, all unified by the logic of systematic improvement. In 1832, he publishes On the Economy of Machinery and Manufacturers, a groundbreaking work of industrial analysis and an early precursor to modern operations research and efficiency studies. The book articulates the Babbage principle, arguing for the division of complex labor into simpler tasks, allowing manufacturers to hire the lowest paid worker capable of performing each specific action. This principle, focused on optimizing factory workflow and reducing labor costs, is so influential that it is later cited and analyzed by Karl Marx in his seminal work Das Kapital. Babbage applies the same systematic logic to human labor that he applies to his engines, reducing complex, costly processes into sequences of simple, optimized steps for efficiency. As a keen observer of Britain's new railway systems, Babbage invents the cowcatcher, a frame fixed to the front of locomotives designed to clear physical obstacles from the tracks safely. Even more presciently, he proposes the creation of black box recorders, mandatory devices for all trains to continuously monitor speed, vibration, and direction, providing crucial accident data. In 1847, Babbage invents a prototype of the ophthalmoscope, a device used for inspecting the interior of the human eye, including the retina. Unfortunately, it is dismissed by physicians and forgotten. 3 years after Babbage's invention, Hermann von Helmholtz independently invents and publishes the design for the ophthalmoscope, revolutionizing ophthalmology and receiving global acclaim. Babbage also contributes significantly to public services, applying statistical methods to the life insurance industry, compiling the first reliable actuarial tables to place it on a scientific basis. He also advocates for the modernization of the British postal system, contributing ideas that pave the way for the successful implementation of the uniform penny post. One of Babbage's most secret achievements is in the field of cryptography, driven by his lifelong fascination with ciphers and code breaking, often engaging in challenges with his friend Charles Wheatstone. Babbage achieves a major breakthrough by systematically cracking the Visionaire cipher, a sophisticated polyalphabetic substitution cipher that had been considered indecipherable for over 3 centuries. He accomplishes this formidable mathematical feat as early as 1854, devising a method to break the code that relies on pattern identification and frequency analysis. Babbage, however, never publishes his findings, leading to his work remaining unknown for decades. Public credit for the identical method later goes to Friedrich Kasiski in 1863. Evidence suggests Babbage's silence was motivated by state secrecy. He likely served as a cryptographical advisor to the British government during the Crimean War, his method being a critical intelligence asset. This secret work is another facet of his core intellectual drive, applying systematic, rigorous logic and pattern recognition to decode complex, chaotic systems, whether they be codes or manufacturing processes. Charles Babbage dies in London on October 18, 1871, at the age of 79. A man deeply embittered and largely forgotten by a public focused on completed industrial achievements. The government had officially terminated the Difference Engine project in 1842, and the far superior Analytical Engine existed only as magnificent drawings and philosophical notes. He is publicly ridiculed in the London Times as a genius who accomplished nothing tangible. The scientific establishment, which Babbage had spent a lifetime criticizing, pays him little heed. The Royal Society, of which he had been a fellow for 55 years, publishes no obituary upon his passing. His legacy is momentarily synonymous with glorious, expensive failure. In a final, curious gesture, Babbage requests that his brain be preserved for scientific study. Half of it remains on public display in London, a tangible relic of his immense intellect. For over a century, Babbage remains a historical footnote, often remembered more for his eccentric campaigns against the noise of London street musicians than for his world-changing conceptual work. His designs were dismissed as impractical, his mechanical requirements deemed impossible to achieve with 19th-century technology, and his revolutionary ideas lay isolated and ignored. The tide turns in 1937 with the rediscovery of Babbage's unpublished notebooks, revealing the immense, breathtaking scope of the analytical engine's conceptual complexity to a new generation. Pioneers of the emerging electronic computer age recognize a kindred spirit. Howard Aiken, creator of the Harvard Mark I, explicitly cites Babbage as the primary unfulfilled influence on his work. Alan Turing, the father of modern computer science, is aware of Babbage and Lovelace's ideas, even referencing Lovelace's philosophical objection to artificial intelligence in his 1950 seminal paper. The final, definitive vindication begins in 1991 when the London Science Museum completes Difference Engine No. 2, using only the materials and precision available in Babbage's era. The stunning success of the fully operational machine proves unequivocally that Babbage's failure was not one of science or engineering, but solely a result of political, financial, and interpersonal limitations. Today, Charles Babbage is universally recognized as the father of the computer. having invented not the electronic machine, but the foundational idea of modern computation itself. His analytical engine was the first design in history to feature the complete logical architecture of all modern computers, the separation of memory, store, from processor, mill. His core legacy is the abstract design, the blueprint, the concept of a universal machine controlled by program instructions and capable of conditional logic, making him the prophet of the digital age. Charles Babbage lost the battle to build his engines in the 19th century, but his visionary idea, echoing across time, ultimately won the war for the future of information and computation.